I've been a little irrationally obsessed with getting my hands on a copy of Princess Ryan's Star Marines from 1997, Avalon Hill, partially because it came to my attention through some discussion forums where people are pointing to it as the last Avalon Hill game and a sign that they were about to meet their demise. Soon realized it wasn't actually the last game they produced, although it was close to one of the last games. And the 1997 game catalog describes it as these Star Marines are the only ones close enough to rescue Earth's young monarch from the tyrannical leader of the Dark Citadel and its elite defending force, the Black Guards. The Star Marines must make their way through an ever-changing battlefield that's loaded with traps, fortifications, ambushes, and seemingly never-ending hordes of Blackguard ground and air forces. This game for the whole family has features to please every player. It is listed players 1 to 6. It is an Avalon Hill complexity of 3, according to them, and about 90 minutes. I'd say maybe the 90 minutes is pretty accurate, maybe a little bit less. Certainly in discussion, it would take that long. And I'm showing you here the box top and now part of the massive two-board map here, and I've set up for play. I'm going to be playing this solo, of course, for my channel, which has slightly different rules. In the co-op version of the game, mostly co-op version of the game, the guards, who are represented here by these cards, have the capacity to quote-unquote hide, so that you need to amass your forces. The person playing the guard player can hide their ultimate value, and the Marines who are coming in to defeat the guards and make their way from, I can't even show it to you quite here, I'll show it to you later, the drop zone alpha starting point, all their way across to where the end point is. They can be hidden by the guard player. We can't use those rules here, obviously, because we're playing solo, and there's a way around that. The second part of the game that's slightly different is that there is an aspect in the multiplayer game where the person playing the guard player, through a random draw, comes up with a number space that the princess is being hidden in. And part of the Marine's job is to figure out where the princess is. It doesn't really affect our gameplay. Most of the rest of the mechanics are the same, and I'm going to demonstrate that here. There are, I'm not going to really go through the rules in such detail. I'll give you a bit of an overview. The rules have been, again, in discussion, widely sort of vilified for being bad. I didn't really find them bad, but the one confusion I had, and I've played the game now a couple of times and tried to tinker it, and I'm just not sure I got it right, is that based on the number of players in the game, you are determining, this is a stack of cards with various values, which card guards you won't be using. So for example, if you're playing with just 2 players and therefore mounting a weaker offense, you can take out before play some of the stronger cards, because it's probably not going to be mathematically possible with the cards that you have to overcome them. Based on there's some ambiguities in the rules that don't really matter, but I am a little bit unclear as to how many cards is the right amount. So what I've decided to do, I'm going to be playing 4 teams of 3 Marines each, and I'm going to be following the rules for the game, which is that for each skirmish that you have with the guards, each team can supply 1 Marine and 1 weapon to try to counter them, and I'll explain how that works. I'm using all the guards, even though they say that's for up to 6 players. And the reason that I'm doing that is because, as I mentioned, the multiplayer rules allow the player playing the guards to use a hide capacity, where they pull out a guard but don't tell you the value of it. So you have to sort of figure out how much you're going to commit to try to overcome the guard in that skirmish. Since we're not playing with that, and since I will have all the information available to me, I'm going to be able to make the best combination of weapons and Marines to try to combat the value number of my guard. And so because of that, I've in effect handicapped myself by deciding to use the entire pack of guards. So we'll see how that goes. I actually haven't played this version before. I've done other combinations, and they've either been too easy. Well, they've mostly been too easy. So let's talk about now how the game sets up. as I said, the game is so big, I can't show it to you in one shot. So here we are at the beginning of our adventure. We have landed in this drop zone alpha, and these parts on the mounted board represent sites that you are traveling through. There are two versions of alternate sites. There are sites that are randomized by these site cards. You can see here that says site. And there are also sites down here that is an alternate route. You have 15 time turns, I guess whether it's hours or days, to get from your beginning all the way to the end. And you utilize or use time by making time checks that are possible to fail. It's a random number drawn from these weapon cards. So a time check is needed. And if you pull the number, in this case, actually, you need a greater than or equal to 7 to advance on the basic track. If you're taking the alternate route, which may have more favorable conditions on it, you have to pass a time check of 9. So that is a risk that you can take, but you get some benefits for using the alternate route. If you fail certain checks, then a random site card will come into play. You flip that over, and then indeed you were at that site. And typically these sites, the alternate ones, have more deleterious rules on them for you as the player. Here are our Marines, and as I mentioned, each squad or each player gets 3 Marines to start, and the Marines have some special skills attached that can be used once per turn, and they also have a value that's called a flag value. The flag value plus the value of the weapon that you're using, in this case it's just a light gun, is going to be your skirmish value. So if this character, Chris, was carrying this light force gun, she would have a flag value of 5. That's not really very high. And you need to overcome in a skirmish the value of the guard that you're encountering. Here is a techno striker with a pretty big whopping value of 42. There are some other abilities or effects that guards have based on these symbols that I'll get into. So you can see why you are fighting with more than one person and why the card deck would need to be managed to deal with that. Because obviously, 5 against 42 isn't even close. However, we're playing with 4 players, so we all, in this co-op version of the game, we all can pull 1 Marine to use with 1 weapon. And naturally, we would want to see what weapons and Marines that we have. Whoops. And some of them have higher or lower flag values. This squad actually has pretty low flag values overall. And let's just check out. Everybody's getting 2 weapons, although again, rules a little bit ambiguous as to whether they have to be specifically assigned to Marine. I play as the squad. So we've got a squad of 3 with weapons of 6 that can be assigned as you wish. So you may say, well, obviously I'm just going to assign, the highest value with the highest value. You can't do that because you'll run out of weapons to use. These are one-time use only, and once you have used them, they need to go right to the repair bay, and they will come back into play with a mechanic that we'll get into later. So what you need to do is assess the situation. You need to come up with a skirmish value that's going to be 42 or greater in order to win, and look at all of your teams and see what weapons you're going to use against this to come up with that value, knowing that once you use the weapon, it needs to be discarded. You may be wondering how you continue on with the game if, as you're moving across this lengthy board here, you keep discarding weapons. And that is one of the kind of cool things. I think there's a lot of cool things about this game, actually, but one of the things that is cool about it is what is called regrouping. So you can decide at a certain point, and it becomes basically push your luck to see how far you're going, how many weapons you're using in the skirmishes that you are having with the guards. Each site is going to be having at least 1 guard. Some of them call for reinforcements depending on the particular needs of the site. How far you're going to push before you need to regroup. Now, when you regroup, in essence, you are getting a new team. I want to look a little more in detail at the regrouping mechanism because that's pretty important. So, of course, the main thing is, in essence, you're getting a new hand. You are refreshing all of your squads. You can get replacement Marines as well as weapons. And you can also use the fruits of your labor, which are in the form of these dispatch cards that you get when you win a skirmish, to purchase a variety of other things, such as weapons and some other things. But of course, why wouldn't you keep doing it? Well, the bad news is that regrouping costs 3 time chips. So we mentioned earlier, and I'm going to just show you right here, the game is timed. You have 15 times to start. Now, there are instructions here, and I think that this raised the ire of a lot of people who paid full price for this game. It was pretty expensive when it came out. You did not even get these timers. You had to use 15 pennies to start and keep removing them. I've got, of course, my dice here. But it costs you 3 time every time you regroup, and you just don't have enough time to do this because you are moving as it is. There are 16 sites across the board. You can't see this here, but there are 16 sites you need to go to, and you are not going to be successful in getting to every site without having to advance the timer because you have to do these random time checks, and sometimes you're going to fail them, and there are going to be other effects that are going to use up time. So you definitely are going to need to do regrouping, and probably more than once. So a lot of this game is about time management and knowing when to do that, and again, how far you can push your luck moving forward across this board with an ever diminishing group of Marines. When you win a skirmish, one of the things that you can win is something called the dispatch card. Dispatch cards have a couple of different functions. Well, they're all unique, so let's just look here on the back. Food poisoning. All skirmishers take a casualty check with a -5 modifier. Any affected may be replaced before the skirmish. Now, this is a negative card and only actually in effect in the 2-player game. This sign means that it is for use only by the Black Guard. So if you pulled this in an opposed game, they would bring it out at some point and cause this to happen to you. Playing solo, there's a different use for these cards. You can either, if the guard is pulling this because they won a skirmish, the AI in effect, they can simply hang on to it and utilize it for a +1 additional value to any future skirmish. And if you pull a card that is only a guard card, you can do the same. So you hang on to it. But there are cards, for example, this one, that are used by either side, the guards or the Marines. This is the Marine symbol here. This 21 plus means that it can only be used by a Marine who has an insignia value of 21 or higher. Looking back at the Marine that we looked at earlier, for example, she's only at an 18. So if she won this card, she directly could not use it. Now, the rules are vague here again. I play that the dispatch cards are available to anyone in the particular squad. And there's a record keeper that I use to see where the dispatch cards were actually doled out. I think I've dwelt enough on the rules. I'm going to get into playing here as we just look at, this is what I'm dealing with in terms of cards and the overall setup. So I'm going to do, it's taking up my whole dining room table here, basically, pulling back to show you. So I'm going to do the best I can off the tripod because there's not much more I can do. Take you through at least until I get to a first regrouping, and then we'll see where we are in terms of time. Just a couple of points here on the matching of the Marines and the weapons. There are 4 types of weapons. There are energy weapons, there are firepower weapons, and the art on the weapons, not so great. The art on the sight cards is by far the best. I'm going to show you that in a second more closely. There are also vehicular weapons somewhere. Here, she's got one right here. She's got a light walker. And there are what are known as edged weapons. Somebody's got this golden axe here. The properties of these weapons sometimes come into play with their specific skills. So here we have Carol Ann Kitty Holbrook. She is known as the cleaning lady, and her energy weapon is worth an extra +2 in a skirmish. So obviously you're going to want to bear something like that in mind when deciding. She's got a couple of energy. Well, she's actually good on the energy weapons, which one to pull. And let me just show you one more thing. This is one of those random site cards. It's a minefield that I pulled just to show you some of the special effects that terrain could have. So in this particular case, any Marine not using a vehicular weapon must take a casualty check before the skirmish is resolved. Now, the casualty checks, as so much in this game, is basically a random, there's no dice in the game, but it's a random die roll in effect based on some of these numbers that come up are used in the weapon cards. And you don't want to have to do that. But thematically, for example, this makes sense. In the minefield, if you're on foot, maybe you have more of a risk than if you are in some vehicle. So we will be taking a look as we get to various portions of the game at the interplay between the terrain and the cards we have. Everybody starts right here. This represents all of our teams. We have one mini. It is not painted when you get the game. When I got this game that somebody sent to me, thank you very much, it was painted. One mini to represent everybody who travels around. You come in at drop zone alpha, and it says play first round here and skirmish until you win. Draw a guard from the barracks. So pulling back here on our excellent map here, we have a spot for everything. So our guard cards are in the barracks, and when we are discarding them, we discard them to the rearmament depot, and eventually they will get filtered back in under certain circumstances. I mentioned that there are some iconography along the side here that have various meanings and values that are described in the back of the rulebook as quick reference. So when we are starting here, what this symbol means right here is that our skirmish value on the guards is -3. So we're getting a little bit of a benefit to start out. And this symbol means that guards do not have the hold attribute. A hold attribute in effect means that if you don't defeat the guard, they stick around. So you're getting a little bit of a benefit. You're dropping in, maybe you're surprising the guards. So you're getting a teeny bit of a benefit here. So to start the turn, what we do quite simply is we are pulling a guard card and seeing who we are encountering. Now, I already showed you this card, and I kept it on the top because it's a pretty high skirmish value of 42. And we note that there is this symbol here of the skeleton. And what this means is that all skirmishes on the site have the kill attribute. And what that means is that it increases the casualty of us, so that instead of perhaps being disabled in some way, we are just dead. So it's a little bit more deadly, this particular guard here, the Techno Strikers. The last number I haven't talked about is this number here. This is a value that is called PP. I can't remember what that stands for. I'll put that up. What that means is you are amassing a performance point. That's what it is. You are amassing these numbers, and at the end of when you decide you're going to be regrouping, there are other things that you can purchase using performance points that you have amassed. So along the way, you can buy other weapons. You can just do various other things with your performance points. So if whoever defeats this Techno Striker will get these performance points allotted to them, and actually it's a promotion point, it's not a performance point. Pulling back here to show you, this is a fan-made creation where you have all the potential 24 Marines. I'm obviously not using all of them at once. Their special abilities, their flag number, and their rank. And this is where you can note down the performance points that they have earned, or the promotion points that they have earned, so that when you come to regrouping, you know who has what to spend. It's the first turn, so we don't need to do any move check, which I will get to in a minute, but we do need to do a time check. And remember, we have 15 segments of time to complete the game, and we need to do a time check every time we are in a place. The time check number here is represented by the blue circle. That is a 3. So what we do, and we do this for every random number we need for the game is to pull from the weapons card. And in this particular case, we need to see whether we are expending extra time. If the number on our card is greater than the time number on the site that we're in this case 3, then no time has elapsed. If we pull less than 3, we are expending extra time. So we see here, we pulled a 7. I hope you can see that. So we're good on the time. So that was the first thing we did. We put this into the magazine. These are available for purchase during regrouping using your performance points, promotion points. I'm going to call this the wrong thing, I'm sure, for the whole video. And now we can move on, just expending the one time and dealing with this Techno Striker guard, where again, we need to come up with a value, a skirmish value of 40 or more. Off camera, I made my decision, and I'm only going to need to use 3 of my 4 squads weapons to get this done, and I've got a total value of a 41. You obviously don't want to overvalue it, but this is what I came up with. I have decided to use my Crystal, the designer Cassidy, who only has a skirmish value of 1, with her nuclear satchel at 11, so that's a total of 12. And I've got Lucy Poodlecut Kursky with her neutron cannon. That's an energy weapon for a value of 14. Now, I chose her because her special ability is to get an additional promotion point if she survives the skirmish. Usually the only person who gets the promotion points is the Marine with the highest value. She's going to get one no matter what, and especially at the beginning of the game, I want to try to get as many as possible. So I'm going to use her skill. I can only use her skill once until I regroup, and I'm going to use her skill here with this energy neutron cannon. And finally, I'm using this lawyer who, his skill, I'm going to use that too, takes the first of any points, promotion points that are won in this round. So he's going to get 1. In essence, we are getting an extra point here very early on in the beginning of the game for defeating this. So instead of getting the 3 that the guard itself would get us, we're getting a 4th one, and I want these early on. So the total value here is a 41, which is enough to win this skirmish. My Marines stay with me, but they lose all their weapons. So all these weapons get discarded into the magazine here, and later on they will get folded back into the draw pile. So we won that skirmish, and that is it. It says we need to play the first round here until we win, which we just did. And again, we had drawn our card from the barracks over there. So the next step would be to continue to move on. Now, this being the second move of the game, we do actually have to do a move check. A move check is drawing another random card. Now, if we continue along this path, this is the most direct route, what we need to do is our check needs to be drawn from the weapons locker, and if it's greater than or equal to 7, we can move there. If it is less than 7, this represents us getting lost, and if it, so that means we end up at an alternate site, and the alternate site would be represented, can't see it here in the video, but I had showed you these random site cards here, which often have worse values. If we decided to take the flanking route on our own, we could do that. We would have to make another move check, but then we would have to draw a card greater than or equal to 9. Now, we might want to look and see the difference between going to this is the bridge to nowhere. It has a time check of 4. Will you cross here? If not, draw the site from the on-deck circle and take another time check based on its time number. So we have the option, if we come to the bridge to nowhere, where we can draw the alternate site, and we see this value here gives the guards a +8. Well, that's a lot. You know, if we pulled a guard with a high skirmish value already, we're adding 8 to it. So that could be pretty bad. The time check again is 7 here, or the move check is 7. If we move down here, the time check is 10. That's a lot. We may discard a weapon and draw a new one, which must be used in the skirmish. Well, I suppose we could do that if we didn't like the pairing of weapons that we have, but I'm pretty happy with everything. So I'm just going to stick here, and I'm not going to really do anything different. So the first thing is to take my move check, and I got a 10, so that is successful. I can move there. I'm not getting lost. So I'm on the bridge to nowhere, and now I just need to figure out, do I want to see what this unknown site is? It could be better, it could be worse, or do I want to stay here? Either way, I need to do this, the time check now to see what, have I lost any time? I think for the purposes of the video, I'm going to do the alternate site. Why not? So what this means is I'm going to reveal this site, which is a raging stream. Okay, here's the raging stream, a little close up. This turned out to be a great thing that we did because, first of all, the time check is a 2 as opposed to a 4, so that makes it easier. And most importantly, though, if you look at this value here, the guard skirmish value is reduced by half. Now, you may recall, you can't see it up here, but on our original site, it was a +8. So this is a significant difference, especially now we want to hope to get a high value on our guard card. But regardless, it's reduced by half. So we won't need to use as many weapons or as many skirmishers. The other thing that's great about it, here we are with this raging stream that we come upon, and each skirmisher must make a swim check while fording the stream. If he draws less than or equal to his weapon value, he loses it, the weapon card that is, this has happened to me before, and must enter the skirmish without one. This really stinks because basically, well, there's a couple of interesting things about this. First of all, if you may want to bring more people than you think you need because some of them might not swim well and they may get caught up in these rushing waters and lose their weapon, and the only thing then they would be able to contribute is their flag value. On the other hand, you don't want to bring too many people because you know regardless you're going to have to discard that weapon, and it's still really early in the game. When you start running out of weapons, you got to do the regroup, and when you do the regroup, you lose 3 time. So this is a good thing to pull to show some of the decisions that get made in the game. The other reason why I like this is this. I have, as one of my Marines, Chrissy, the actress Zizo, and look, she's an Olympic swimmer. Of course, you can tell that, right? She adds +3 or -3 to all swimming checks. So I'm definitely going to take her, and she's got a flag value of 3. That's great. She is not likely to lose a weapon. So I'm pretty happy about this. This was a good little risk to take to be in the raging stream instead of trying to cross that bridge to nowhere. Before we pull our guard, I need to clean something up from the end of the last skirmish, which is this. When you win a skirmish, you will be gaining two things. One, you'll be gaining a dispatch card. I pulled from the top of the card, and we got mechanized martinets. This sounds pretty good. Wind up toys, draw fire, allowing Marines to advance to next site, void the skirmish. Oh. That's interesting. This is a great card. It can be used by somebody within a value of greater than 11. This, in a 2-player game or a multiplayer game, would have been able to be used by both sides, but we can certainly use it. And in essence, we can keep this in our hand and pull it out if we're losing something. I think that's how I interpret it. I haven't seen this card before. All the dispatch cards, and there are quite a few of them. I think there's 50 or 60. They're all different. So I have not encountered all of them yet in the games that I've played. So this is quite valuable. And again, we could just, I wouldn't do it in this case, but we could also just use it to add 1 to our skirmish value if we wanted to. So we have this in our pocket. The other thing that we have in our pocket are the 3 promotion points from winning or defeating this Techno Striker. And these are going to be allocated. You recall the fellow whose skill was to get the first of the promotion points in the skirmish. So he got those 3, and then I had my other character, Lucy Poodlecut Kursky, who gets 1 no matter what. I hadn't noticed this before. I believe this is an error. If you pull up this sheet, I think this is an error here, that Lucy, actually only has a flag rating of 2 and a rank of 4. These were duplicated here, so you might want to correct that if you're using this sheet. I indicate down that she gets the 1, and the 3 are going to be allocated to Hank trademark Mickey, who was part of this. So he's got the 3. So we're going to save that for later on when we regroup and start buying some things. And now, amid this raging stream, we are going to encounter a guard, and let's see who we get. Council Chamber Corps. Well, oh, actually, no, this is great. Look at that. That is, unless I'm mistaken, I think that's actually the highest value. It is. That's the highest value card. Fantastic. So because we're in the water here, his skirmish value is actually only 30. This is a massive, big break. And no, I did not set this up. This just happened. We have this value here we need to look at. In reference, okay, skirmishes on this site have the casualty attribute. What that means is that typically if you lose a skirmish, the skirmisher involved on your side who has the lowest skirmish value, that is to say the lowest flag plus weapon value, is the one to take the casualty. When we encounter a guard that has this icon, it means that we need to have 2, let's see, increase by 1, right. So we have to take 2 casualties, and the casualties are pretty rough. It's really easy to get wounded in this game, and we'll get to that when we get to that. So we're encountering this person. We're, again, coming up with a value of 31, and my goal here is to try to be as economical as possible. But I have to bear in mind that before I actually can say that I have come up and am using these people, I'm running the risk that I'm going to be dropping my weapon. So I need to figure out how many weapons I want to commit to this and what that risk might be. I've thought about it probably way too long, and I'm deciding to go with something where everybody's going to have to pass this swim check, or else I'm going to lose the skirmish, because to add in, I can't add in another Marine really without a weapon that would take me still over even the 30. So here's what I've decided to do. I've got my Olympic swimmer here, so she's going to have the best chance at passing the swim check, and thus I've given her this photon rocket, which has a value of 10. So because of her additional prowess at swimming, this is going to be actually, the swim check would have to be just 7. So she's just going to have to draw a 7 or less on this one. Then I went with our cleaning lady using an energy weapon. So this is great because this value here for the check is 2, but actually the value in the skirmish is going to be 4 on this. And then the best thing I could do was to pull my guy here who has a rugged constitution, and thus when he gets a casualty check, he's going to be less susceptible to a serious wound because he is with a heavy laser. I just needed this to come up with, I think I'm at 31 or 32 to pass this 60. And so he's got to do the check. To do the check, again, we're pulling these random numbers, but I've got to decide the order. I can't pull this number and then say, oh, well, it's going to be this. So I think we're just going to go back in the order I showed you. So our first swim check here is going to be with our Olympic swimmer, and we're looking here for a 7 or less for her to pass. Okay, well, great. So she passed, she swam through, terrific. Now we're moving on to our cleaning lady who's using her heavy force gun, an energy weapon. So she, because of her expertise with energy weapons, is contributing 4 on that, but we're looking here for a 2 or less. Easy to pass that. And this is the risky one that, it is what it is. He's got a heavy laser, and we need a 9 or less to pass and swim through, and indeed, he did not. It was just too heavy for him, so he is only coming through. He loses this weapon, and he is only coming through on his own with his flag value of 4. Unfortunately, what that means, because I just couldn't come up with enough to do in that way, we are going to lose this skirmish. And because he dropped his weapon in the water, we've lost the skirmish, and now we need to move on and take our wounds. I made a big deal when I was choosing this fellow here because I thought, well, he has the risk of becoming a casualty with this heavy laser that he's trying to swim through with, but he gets a benefit with his rugged constitution. What I forgot actually is that under usual circumstances, the only skirmisher who needs to take the casualty check is the one with the lowest skirmish value, in which case, under normal circumstances, that wouldn't be him. It would be our cleaning lady here because she has her skirmish value was 2-4 plus her benefit of 6, and he's at a 13. However, actually, it sort of worked out in a weird way because of this casualty icon. We need to do 2 casualty checks, so it would be the 2 lowest, and so we're definitely doing her. And then both of these have a value of 13, so obviously I'm going to choose him because he has this benefit, and I'll just use that skill to hopefully mitigate the poor results of the casualty. It would have been more effective for me to not use this guy in this group, to be honest. I just made a mistake. I should have saved it for a situation where I knew that he alone would be the lowest value skirmisher for that 1 casualty check. However, I'm still getting the benefit even though I have to make the 2 checks. So a casualty check works, as do so many things in this game, by a random draw pull, and based on the number that you get, there is the result. So we pulled a 9, which is not great because a draw of 8 to 10 puts us in the morgue. So unfortunately, our cleaning lady here has died, and she's going over there off camera to the morgue. Regardless, she would be discarding. All of these weapons are going to be discarded. The next person getting the check is going to be this guy with the rugged constitution, and so his pull is a 12. We get to reduce 2 from that to a 10, and that is unfortunately still going to be putting us into the morgue. It was just a bad draw all around, and we've lost him as well. So of this whole group, the only one that made it through the skirmish and the raging stream was our Olympic swimmer. All right, we've advanced a little bit here. I know there's a glare, but we've made it to the enemy sympathizers area. We are down to 13 time. We lost a couple of time, and we absolutely need to do a regroup. So I'm going to show you that and then probably come back with some thoughts. This is where we're down to with our original 4 squads. Remember, each squad started out with 3 Marines and 6 weapons each. This is how far I got, and there's just no point in continuing on. There's no way we are going to be able to make more progress without taking the time to regroup. So the first thing we have to do is turn our time down to 10, and now you can start to see how you really lose this game. So I'm going to I don't have a 0 obviously on that die, so pull it out. That'll be a 1, and we will get down to using our 10-sided die when I come back. This is how far we have to go. Here we are. It is a long way. To do the regrouping, the very first thing that we need to do is to determine the fate of the Marines who are currently in the sick bay. And we can pan over here and see we got a bunch of them through combat, 3 of them in the sick bay. And the rules for doing that tell us here we do a check. So we'll just go down here, and we got a 1. So the 1 is we move to the ready room face down. That's great. This means she's going to be available in the future to come in. And for our lady over here, or scout, we got a check of a 5. This means she's going to be removed to the ready room face up. So that is, she's not going to be totally available yet. And the last one from sick bay, she got a check of a 12. Unfortunately, she didn't make it, and she's going to join her fellow Marines in the morgue. We already lost a bunch of people, and they're out. So that's the first step. The second step is that we need to return 1 of our Marines to the ready room face down from each of our squads here. And unfortunately, so these will get shuffled in. So we're going to take these we really have no choice in who we're going to use because these three squads only have one left. And so that will become available. And then here for the last squad, we've got a little bit of a choice. Let's see what their skills are. She's the one who gets the extra performance points or promotion points if she survives a skirmish. I really like that. On the other hand, she gets to deduct 2 from a health check, which can be pretty helpful because those casualty checks are pretty rough. I'm going to keep her. I'm losing Marines pretty quickly, so I'm going to keep her. I'm going to discard her back in, and then let's see, leaving out the face up one. The next stage is to, I think we rearm. Let me just check. Hang on. Yeah, that's right. So basically we're shuffling the face down cards from the ready room and we're dealing out to our squad, so we each get 3. It's just random, so we'll take a look at who we get later on, but we're coming back to full strength. This one, of course, only gets 2 because we kept her, and these go back to the ready room. The next stage in the regrouping is called rearming. So what we're doing is we're taking the cards in the repair bay. I realize this should have been here actually, and we are shuffling them back into this weapons deck for further reallocation. Now, there's a rules ambiguity here which says that if you are a Marine player without a Marine, you do not have the option to keep your weapons. You must put them in to be shuffled. You could, of course, potentially get them again. But the order in which it's written is you're never going to be somebody without a Marine because you're already replenishing. But I think the intention is that these 3 squads, which didn't have anybody left after we did the mandatory putting back, are going to lose all their weapons. So we're back here with this weapons deck. I'm going to shuffle it up and dole out 3 weapons for the squads. This squad still has 3, so they'll only be getting 6, but everybody else is going to be getting fresh 6 weapons. Now we're back here. This is what we look like with our full amount of new squads, and the final thing we need to do is to spend those performance points and promotion points. Man, the promotion points. We only really have enough to spend to buy a dispatch card, so we're going to do that. There are other options like buying weapon. Well, you know, we could buy a weapon, but I'm going to buy a dispatch card instead, just because I don't know why. I like the fact that they're all unique here, and despite having played the game a few times, I've not gotten all through them. So we're going to spend what we have to buy a dispatch card, and we'll see what we get. We got a robotic slicer. Souped up food processor serves as an edged weapon. So in essence, it was like buying a weapon. Use this dispatch as a weapon with a value of 10. All right, that's cool. So we sort of pulled that. Again, a little ambiguous here. This can be used by somebody with a Marine with a value of 8 or 9, basically, or more. So we need to bear that in mind, but this is an additional weapon that we have. And that's it. We're back at it. I have updated our timing device with my D10 here. We've got 10 turns left to move, but we're only on space 5, so we got to make some quick progress. We haven't used the shuttle yet. I did use this ballistic insertion at one point off camera to move ahead 2 columns, and that actually worked. There's a risk involved in using any of this stuff, and basically we need to go back now and inspect and see who we have, what weapons we got, what their skills are. Some skills like this one, for example, are not going to come into play in the solo game because this particular skill involves that mechanic in the co-op game where the person playing the guard player is hiding the column number of where the princess is, but we're not playing with that, so that's basically a non-skill. She's got a climbing check number. I don't think I played with her earlier in this game, but I recently played with her. That comes into effect on certain terrains, and this ignores the stun wound casualty check. That's pretty good. And we have, let's see, a variety of weapons here on this squad. And again, just moving down, looking at the skills mostly, That's pretty good. Adds +7 to a time check. That's actually really important because we are definitely running out of time. So this is going to save us one potential loss in time. So that's actually a great guy to have with us right now. Doubles PP gain when winning a skirmish. That could be very useful. And, you know, we had this guy before, the one who takes the first of any PPs won in this round. Laser carbine, rover runner, heavy Hoover tank. Honestly, the weapons don't make too much of a difference, except occasionally with these terrain effects, they do. And it's mostly really the skills. May use any suit as an edge weapon. Well, okay, that's pretty good. So he could turn any of his weapons. They refer to suits. There's 4 of them, as in card suits. He can turn any of these, of his weapons, into an edged weapon. So if we're in a situation in a terrain that those weapons have a benefit, that could be useful. It gives us some flexibility. This is great. Negates the flag value of 1 reinforcement guard. So we will be definitely using that skill, and when we come upon a terrain that call for reinforcements, that's quite helpful. And her edge weapon is worth an extra +2. So, for example, here she's not actually even going to have an edge weapon, so this will be a useless skill because this squad has no edged weapons, and she does not have the skill of the other one, so she can't just turn anything into that. My plan on this rainy Sunday was to, off camera, go through, play the rest of the game, tell you what happened, and come back and share some thoughts. And I thought maybe I've got an extra hour, so great. Well, there's a lot of luck in this game, and I just had some bad luck in literally like 2 minutes. So I'm coming back here pretty quickly to say that, as you can see, I'm already down to 8 time left. Basically, what happened was I moved on to I was here, and I failed my time check, so I had to choose this alternate site, which was, the light, again, we got a big storm here, so it's hard to see. This was Earthquake Ridge, and the first thing that I had to do because of this tectonic plate shift was I had to scramble to save my weapons. Every player had to discard 1 weapon and give the rest to the player to his right. In this game, we discarded, so we immediately everybody lost a weapon right away. Then I failed the time check, so I'm down time, and then I pulled for the skirmish. Let's see if we can come in and show you what happened. We're in a site where we have reinforcements. So what we pulled here, the first thing we pulled, we encountered a tactical flying squad, and that's got a skirmish value of 34. And they call in reinforcements. So they called in this heavy armed infantry at a value of 46. And guess what? They have this hand here, and the hand, the first guard on the site, that is the hold attribute. What that means is that if we do not defeat this, if we do not win this skirmish, which is a pretty high value, this guy is going to stick around, and we're going to have to fight them again. And honestly, I don't think we're going to be able to do it. I'll try to figure it out if I can, but I think we're going to lose this skirmish, and then we're going to have to come back and re-deal with this again. We only have 8 time left, and we're going to be really quickly having to regroup, bringing us down to 5 time. It's basically mathematically impossible, I think, for us to make our way across because this all happened at site 5. So it's a good, I'll do it off camera, but it's a good lead into a discussion, I guess, a little bit of, one of the negatives of this game is it can be wildly luck driven and have a lot of swings of fate that can pretty much go against you fairly quickly. The designer sort of recognized some of this by making this provision here at the end for this so-called do or die rule. I think that's what they called it, do or die. So if you have, I think it's less than 3 left on the time check, you can decide essentially to roll a dice and see whether or not you can make any successful approach and somehow get to the end and rescue the princess and win. But that's really a mechanism so that if you're sitting around the table, you basically know the game is over, as I do now. I didn't even get that far. There's just no way that anything could possibly happen to allow me to win the game. Does this ruin the game? Not for me. I mean, this is a light game. I enjoyed it immensely. I think the artwork, though somewhat erratic, is collectively pretty nice, and definitely by far the best artwork is on the map and then on these site cards. If I can show you some of them, these are the randomly generated site cards that come in as the alternate sites. So it's pretty colorful and fits the sci-fi campy theme well. There's some decision making. Luckily, early in the video, I was actually able to show you. I mean, that's the extent of the decision making in the game. What already happened in this game? There was a bunch of it, and mostly surrounding that water. And then we sort of fell off the cliff basically with the combination of losing time and losing weapons, and then pulling, in essence, an undefeatable combination of heavy guards and forcing us pretty early on to have to regroup almost immediately. It's just going to be over for us, and that's that with this game. This game is pretty easily available, I think, to find somewhere online, an old copy of it. Whether or not it's worth seeking out, I think hopefully I've shown enough of how the game plays that you can figure that out now. There's just not a lot about this game online that isn't mostly a conversation about how horrible it is and how it just signaled the end of Avalon Hill and all of that. And I'm glad that I found it, and I'm glad that I have played it a bunch. I think I will probably be playing it again, Maybe it's a family game, as they say, play with your kids. Here's the back of the box, just so you can see the rest of it here. They've got it as a highly solitaire game. Yes, complexity low. Yes, indeed. You've got your color rule book, your scout model, and your various cards, your playing boards. Oh, they give the dimensions here. So it's two 16 by 22 playing boards. It's just got a huge footprint. And as I said, it took me a lot of space pulling back here to show you how much space it actually took up in my room. So that is it from 1997, Princess Ryan's Star Marines.